Let's be honest, you've been there. You've texted her, called her, even made time in your life for her, only to feel the emptiness of silence staring back at you. That feeling, that pit in your chest when you realize she's ignoring you, it's brutal. And here's the truth most men never get. When a woman pulls away, it's never about you being not enough in the way you think. It's about her, her emotions, and the unseen psychology that drives her every move. When a woman starts ignoring you, her mind is racing. She's testing, observing, and most importantly, evaluating whether you're a man who can hold his ground or a man who will crumble under the pressure. And let me tell you, most men fail this test without even knowing it exists. They panic. They overtext. They try to force attention, unknowingly signaling desperation. Desperation is the fastest way to push her further away. You need to understand this. Her ignoring you is not a rejection, it's a mirror. It reflects your response, your control, and your self-worth in ways she doesn't even consciously recognize. Now, here's where men go wrong. They interpret silence as failure. They convince themselves they've done something wrong or that she doesn't like them anymore. That's a dangerous mindset because it triggers emotional reactions that she can sense, even from a distance. Women are wired to detect emotional instability. When you chase, when you beg for attention, when you overcompensate for her silence, it signals low value. High-value men, on the other hand, understand the subtle rules of female psychology. A woman's silence is a tool, and how you respond is the ultimate test of your character. Here's the key psychological twist most men miss. When she pulls back, she's creating space to gauge your emotional resilience. She wants to see if you have a life outside of her. She wants to know if you're independent enough to be magnetic rather than clingy. Every man she tests is subconsciously measured against this invisible scale. Confidence, patience, and emotional intelligence. If you react impulsively, you fail. If you respond with control, awareness, and subtle strategy, you rise above the majority of men who panic and crumble. But don't get me wrong, this isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding human behavior and your own emotional power. Ignoring her back won't work. Acting detached while pretending to be unaffected won't work either. You need a deeper approach, a psychological reset that shifts the dynamic in your favor without chasing, pleading, or losing dignity. It's a delicate balance, but once mastered, it transforms the way she sees you. You become the man she notices, the one who isn't just available but compelling, magnetic, and emotionally unshakable. By the time we're done, you'll see the patterns clearly. You'll know exactly how to position yourself so that silence doesn't terrify you but empowers you. You'll understand what triggers attraction, what pushes her away, and the hidden signals that reveal her true feelings without her saying a word. And here's the thing, this knowledge isn't shared openly. Most men never learn this because it's subtle, psychological, and requires discipline. But for the man who listens, who absorbs, and who acts with strategy, the results are undeniable. When she ignores you, your mind starts spinning with questions you shouldn't even be asking. Why isn't she texting back? Did I do something wrong? Does she even care? Stop. Right there. That is exactly what she wants you to feel: uncertainty, doubt, a little panic in your chest. Every woman has felt this power before, and when you fall into it, you give away your emotional authority without even realizing it. The first rule to understand: your value is not determined by her attention. It's determined by your presence, your energy, and the man you are outside of her orbit. Here's the raw truth. Ignoring her or chasing her blindly will break attraction. Women don't fall for desperation. They fall for security, mystery, and the unspoken magnetism of a man who operates on his own terms. When she goes quiet, it's your opportunity to step back, observe, and recalibrate. This isn't passive, it's a strategic pause, a test of emotional control. You see, men think action is always external, texts, calls, showing up. But attraction is psychological first. What happens inside your mind when she's silent? Your reaction, your confidence, your ability to stay grounded dictates how she perceives you more than anything else. Now listen carefully. The most powerful move isn't to chase herets to elevate yourself. Focus on your life, your purpose, your ambitions. the parts of you that don't need her validation. Women are instinctively drawn to men who radiate independence, who don't crumble when a door closes or a text goes unanswered. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but this shift creates tension in the right way. It makes her notice you differently. Suddenly, you're no longer just a presence in her life, you're a challenge, a man with a world she wants to be a part of. And here's the kicker most men never see. Silence is also a reflection of her own uncertainty. She's deciding if you are the man who can lead, who can hold emotional stability, who can create attraction without trying. If you react emotionally, she checks out. If you react with calm confidence, she leans in. You're being measured without a word, tested without a conversation, and the stakes are higher than you realize. Every text you resist sending, every moment you maintain composure, strengthens your position. Every overreaction weakens it. This isn't about playing games. It's about mastering the subtle dynamics that govern attraction. The moment you internalize this, you stop fearing her silence. You stop letting it control your thoughts, your mood, your day. Instead, you use it as information. You analyze it like a strategist. When she disappears, why? What is she feeling? What part of me is creating this distance? And most importantly, what can I adopt psychologically, emotionally, energetically to rise above panic and become the man she notices without pushing or pleading? The key is awareness, patience, and self-mastery. Ignore the impulse to react. Embrace the discomfort of uncertainty. Reclaim your energy and redirect it into the life she's silently watching from the sidelines. When done correctly, her ignoring you no longer feels like rejection. It feels like a mirror reflecting her desire to see the man who doesn't just exist for her, but thrives whether she's there or not. That is magnetic. That is irresistible. And that is how men transform silence from a threat into an advantage. The moment she ignores you, it can feel like the walls are closing in. Every unanswered text, every missed call, every seen message becomes a weight on your chest. But here's what most men miss. Her silence is never random. It's a signal, a psychological cue that she's testing the depth of your confidence, your patience, and your self-worth. And this is where the power shifts. Because while most men panic and overextend themselves, the man who understands the unspoken rules gains leverage effortlessly. The truth is simple. Attraction is not about who texts first. It's about who carries presence, control, and value. Women are wired to detect emotional instability. When you chase, when you overcompensate, when you try too hard, it screams low value. But when you step back, when you pause, when you focus on your life instead of her reaction, it triggers a different response: curiosity. She begins to notice the space you occupy in the world, the life you lead, the confidence you radiate without her validation. That tension is magnetic, and it pulls her back without a single word from you. Here's a psychological twist that blows most men's minds. The more she senses you're emotionally independent, the more she begins to miss the connection. Her mind starts to replay moments she took for granted. The laughs, the intensity, the feeling of being understood by a man who doesn't bend for attention. Women are highly sensitive to emotional energy. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to chase. You just need to embody the energy she subconsciously craves: confidence, calm, and value that exists whether she's present or not. And this is where timing becomes everything. Do not misunderstand. Ignoring her in anger or frustration will backfire. It's not a punishment. It's a demonstration of self-mastery. By maintaining control, by living your life fully, you activate a natural psychological trigger in her. She starts to wonder what she's losing. She begins to question why you're not reacting the way other men do. That tension, that subtle pull, is the foundation of attraction. It's not manipulation, it's understanding human behavior and using it responsibly to cultivate desire. Now, most men fail because they underestimate the power of absence. They overtext, overcall, overanalyze, and in doing so, collapse the very tension that creates attraction. The secret is counterintuitive. The less visible you are, the more she notices you. The less she hears from you, the more her mind begins to fill the gaps with thoughts of you. And when done correctly, she will reach out on her own, drawn by the magnetic force of your independence, intrigued by the man who isn't desperate to be noticed, but impossible to ignore. Here's the final insight for this stage. Your value is psychological, not transactional. It's not about buying attention with gifts, flattery, or time. It's about cultivating emotional stability, self-reliance, and presence. When she sees a man who stands firm, who radiates confidence, who moves through life without depending on her approval, she feels a pull she can't articulate but she can't resist. That's the subtle art of turning silence into attraction. That's how you shift the dynamic, silently but powerfully, from being ignored to being noticed, desired, and pursued. Most men think getting a woman's attention is about effort, about persistence, about doing more to prove themselves. That's exactly what drives her further away. Here's the hard truth. Attraction is invisible. It operates beneath words, beneath texts, beneath visible actions. Women respond to energy, presence, and emotional consistency far more than they respond to noise. When she's ignoring you, every impulsive reaction you have either reinforces your value or destroys it. The difference lies in subtle, deliberate behaviors that most men never understand. First, you need to reclaim your emotional boundaries. When she goes quiet, you cannot allow it to affect your self-worth. You are not defined by her attention. You are defined by the man you are when no one is watching. Women are wired to sense this, your energy, your confidence, the calm in your life. That calm is magnetic. It pulls her curiosity toward you. It makes her wonder what it is about you that she can't quite grasp, the sense of security and mystery that surrounds you effortlessly. Next, embrace strategic engagement. This is not chasing. This is not ignoring in frustration. This is measured, high-value communication. When you do reach out, your words should carry purpose, confidence, and subtle intrigue. Short messages, playful energy, or a moment of humor, never desperation. She should feel your presence, not your need. A well-timed message after a period of silence creates psychological tension. She will unconsciously analyze every word, every tone, every nuance, and in doing so, she begins to feel drawn not because you chased her, but because you demonstrated value while she was absent. Now, here's a psychological pattern most men miss completely. Absence amplifies desire, but only if paired with high-value lifestyle signals. What does that mean? It means you don't sit at home waiting. You live, you grow, you cultivate experiences, social circles, and accomplishments. She observes, even from a distance, your life moving forward without her validation. And here's the key. Women are attracted to men whose worlds are full, whose time is precious, and whose attention cannot be bought. When you demonstrate this subtly, she begins to respect you, admire you, and ultimately crave the connection she initially dismissed. And remember this, silence is also a reflection of her own attraction. A woman who ignores you is not necessarily rejecting you. She is creating space to feel your energy, to test your confidence, to see if you are the man she subconsciously desires. If you overreact, she disengages. If you respond with composed energy, she leans in. Every action you take, or refrain from taking, becomes part of the psychological equation she's solving in her mind. Finally, learn the power of subtle mystery. Do not over-explain, overshare, or clarify your feelings impulsively. Mystery ignites curiosity. It signals independence. It creates psychological tension that is irresistible. When combined with self-mastery, emotional control, and purposeful communication, it flips the dynamic entirely. She is no longer ignoring you. She is noticing, analyzing, and feeling drawn to a man who exists fully on his own terms. This is how silence transforms from a weapon into a catalyst for attraction. This is how you stop being ignored and start being sought after. If you think attraction is a straight line, you're already behind. Women don't respond to effort alone. They respond to emotional cues, subtle signals, and the energy you radiate when she isn't paying attention. When she ignores you, the real power lies not in what you do to get her back, but in who you become while she's absent. Your internal state, your confidence, your ability to thrive without needing her validation, that is what sparks desire. That is what flips the script entirely. Here's the raw truth most men fail to see. Women are drawn to scarcity, but scarcity without value is useless. You can ignore her all you want, But if your life is stagnant, she will sense weakness, boredom, or desperation hiding beneath the silence. You must elevate yourself, focus on personal growth, social dominance, fitness, financial progress, hobbies, passions, friendships, whatever, makes you a man who exists fully and unapologetically. Your growth doesn't just make you attractive, it makes you magnetic. And here's the subtle psychological magic. When a man thrives while being ignored, the mind of a woman starts to obsess quietly. She notices what she's missing, even if she won't admit it openly. Now, let's talk about triggers. The first trigger is emotional stability. She tests you silently when she ignores you. Any hint of panic, overreaction, or insecurity pushes her away. Calm composure, on the other hand, draws her in. She wants a man who feels like a rock, unshaken by distance or silence. The second trigger is independence. She is instinctively drawn to men who live life on their own terms. The third, and perhaps the most powerful trigger, is scarcity paired with high value. You exist in her mind because you are present emotionally and psychologically without being constantly available physically. That tension creates craving. Here's what most men get wrong. They believe attraction is linear, that effort equals results. It doesn't. Attraction is layered, subtle, and psychological. She ignores you to feel the emotional contrast between desperation and independence. When you overreact, she feels suffocated. When you maintain presence, pursue your life, and subtly signal value, she feels intrigued, curious, and ultimately drawn to you. Every actioner, deliberate inaction is part of a psychological equation she's solving without even realizing it. And here's the final insight for this stage. Pursue your own path relentlessly, and she will chase you without realizing it. Your life must be fuller than her attention. Your presence must be magnetic without being needy. Your energy must signal confidence, abundance, and emotional mastery. Once you embody this, she stops ignoring you. She begins to wonder, to question, to reach out. Attraction flips. She moves towards you because the man she desires has been visible all along. Not because he begged for attention, but because he lived with power and independence she couldn't resist. Remember this: women ignore men not to hurt them, but to see who they truly are under pressure. The moment you stop reacting, start thriving, and radiate value silently, the dynamic changes. She is no longer in control. Your presence, your energy, and your psychological mastery take the lead. That is the power most men never understand, and that is why so many fail. But not you, not anymore. What most men never realize is that the game of attraction is not about her actions, it's about yours. Her ignoring you is not a failure. It's a reflection, a test, and a challenge designed to reveal who you really are under pressure. The question is simple. Will you crumble, chase, and beg like most men do? Or will you rise above, master your emotions, and reclaim your power? The choice determines whether you remain invisible or become irresistible. Here's the final psychological truth. Women are drawn to men who are emotionally unshakable, who live life on their own terms, and who can create tension without trying. Silence is not rejection, it's a mirror of your value. Every moment you resist the urge to react impulsively. Every day you thrive without needing her attention. Every subtle signal of independence you project builds the invisible force that pulls her back to you naturally. This is not manipulation, it's mastery. It's understanding the silent language of attraction that most men will never see. Now, let me break it down for clarity. First, reclaim your emotional state. Do not let her absence dictate your mood or your day. You are not defined by her attention. You are defined by the life you build, the confidence you radiate, and the consistency of your presence. Second, elevate your values silently. Focus on yourself, your passions, your ambitions, and your social circles. Your life must be richer than her attention, and this richness communicates power in ways words never can. Third, communicate with intention. Every message, every interaction should have purpose, subtlety, and confidence. Never over-explain, never beg, never chase. Here's a nuance most men miss. Attraction is created by tension, curiosity, and scarcity coupled with undeniable value. The more she sees you thriving without her, the more she begins to crave your attention. The more she wonders why you're so unaffected, the stronger her desire grows. She doesn't even realize the psychological forces pulling her in. And that's the beauty you no longer need to chase. You don't need to force her attention. You've created a space where she wants to engage, where she wants to reconnect, where her interest is drawn naturally by the man you've become. Finally, understand this. This knowledge is powerful, and few men ever use it. Most will panic, overreact, and destroy the attraction before it can take root. But the man who masters this, the one who understands silence, presence, and psychological tension, becomes magnetic. He becomes noticed. He becomes desired. He becomes the man she can't stop thinking about, the one she reaches out to, not the one begging for attention. So here's what I want you to do now. Think about the last time she ignored you and ask yourself honest, how did you respond? Now, in the comments, share one action you will take differently next time to reclaim your power. Solve this. If her silence is a test and your reaction determines her desire, how will you pass it next time? Comment your answer below. Like this video if you found this truth valuable. Subscribe for more insights that women never tell men. And share this with a friend who needs to hear this, because most men are failing this test without even realizing it.